welcome to another episode of Curtain Call Conversations. I'm here today with Dan Willis, who is currently with The House with Chicken Legs. How are you, Dan?
I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to be here. Thanks, Emma.
Good, no problem. So you've just finished off your tour not so long ago, and you're due to open again at the Southbank Centre in London from the 13th of December. So how did the tour go, firstly?
Really well. Yeah, we've had a lovely time. We've been to all across the country, right from the sort of south coast up to sort of closer to home for me up in the northwest in Leeds and York. And yeah, it's been a really enjoyable time. Very different audiences at each place, but we've had a lovely response to it as well. So it's been a real joy to take it all over the place.
Yeah, and I mean, the show itself, you play Jack Daw. So tell us all about your character.
Well, so Jack Daw, as you say, it's I play him as a puppet. So I'm sort of operating him. So I'm standing behind Jack, as we call him, to bring him to life. He's one of the sort of the characters that is very close to the central character, Marinka. And he can fly, he talks to a certain extent in his own language, and he probably thinks of himself more as a pet dog than a bird, but he helps Marinka on her journey. And so, yeah, throws a few spanners in the works as well without giving any spoilers away.
Right. Okay. I mean, tell us about Marinka and what's her story. Obviously, The House with Chicken Legs. I mean, it's a great title. So it draws you in already. So tell us what that relevance has, that title.
So, well, The House with Chicken Legs refers to the house that Marinka lives in with her Baba, her grandmother. And it's a magical story based on a lot of folklore, sort of Eastern European folklore and fairy tales as well. And the house has chicken legs. It's a house that can move from place to place, as Marinka's grandmother is one of the guides that takes people on their final journey back to the stars. And so it moves all over the world, very, very frequently doesn't stay in a place for very long. And we go on a journey with Marinka to all these different places, meet all these different people, and make some discoveries along the way as well.
Right, sounds really exciting. I mean, I'm sorry that I'm not going to get a chance to see this, but I am sending someone along to see it in London, and so I can't wait to hear what they think. I mean, going back to the story, I watched a clip online, and I mean, the costuming is quite incredible. I mean, would you say it's quite a visual show?
Definitely. I mean, if you've not seen a Les Enfants Terribles show before, the kind of the visual style is something that's really part of how they make things.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, the design, the costumes, and the puppet Jack as well were designed by Samuel Wire. And they're very striking. They're really rooted in some of that sort of folklore. So you might recognize some of the costumes look a little bit like you might see a Cossack dancer dressed in that sort of influence. They're very colorful. At times they can blend into things. We've got projections on the screen as well, and animation. So they kind of blend in as well. But it's a very visual style that we work with, and they're a lot of fun to wear as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, what essentially is your puppet? What does he look like?
So Jack looks like a jackdaw.
Right.
He's a very true representation of a jackdaw. He's got a little bit of a sparkle to him, so he catches the light, which I think he would find very flattering. But he's very much of the sort of a realistic puppet. It moves very, very much like a real life animal would do. He can fly, he can jump around, and he can sort of speak as well. So it's a really fully working character, really. And you might recognize things like the sort of Jim Henson puppetry, that kind of thing. It's got a real that kind of really nice sort of feel to it as well.
Okay. Have you done puppetry before in your career?
Yeah, so I've done a fair bit over the years. I didn't formally train as a puppeteer, but I've done a lot of workshopping with other companies that you might have heard of, like Improbable and Little Angel and that
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. It's a really different way of working as an actor
Yeah.
because you're channeling everything through something that's not you.
Mm,
Um, but it's a really lovely thing. They can do things that we can't, so that's
yeah.
quite exciting to
Yeah.
be
I
able to
think it's
play them.
quite a sort of a freeing sort of experience, really, to be able to portray a puppet. I mean, it must be wonderful to be able to move it however you want, and for it to look visually stunning, really. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, let's talk about your career, Dan. I mean, I was reading your bio, and I mean, it's long, so you fit a lot in. So
I've
tell
managed to
me,
fit. Yeah.
where's your love of performing come from?
Well, one of the reasons why I've always wanted to work with Les Enfants is because of I've always combined music and theatre, and that's a real joy for me. That's one of the things that I really love doing. So
Yeah.
in this show, we've got a lot of live. Each of us, there's six of us performing in it, and each of us plays live at some point. So I love having that element, and I think it's being able to do different things all the time.
Yeah.
I love different disciplines, whether it's dance or whether it's singing or acting, and bringing those together is just a lovely thing to be able to do when you've got all those things to choose from,
Yeah.
and bring together. So it's difficult for me to pin down exactly one thing that I would say is the thing
Mm.
that I love doing most, but variety is definitely a big thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, did you sort of as a child, were you interested in the performing arts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember being fascinated by a visiting theatre company that came to our school,
Mm.
um, and they just created a show outside, and I think that was the thing for me that just sort of made me think, oh, you can create all these different worlds,
Mm.
and then I joined a youth theatre. I did school plays and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then when I got a bit older, I sort of thought, well, I'd like to do that professionally. So I trained in both music and then in theatre and
Hmm.
acting as well.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just sort of grown from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, it has, because as I say, your bio is quite long, and it sort of mentions. I mean, it's great. It mentions that you're a composer as well, and you've created music for more than 20 theatre productions and several short films. So tell us about that. I mean, what sort of work have you done in that respect?
Well, as I mentioned, I studied music as well, and I never intended to sort of go into composition or that kind of thing. And I should just say I didn't write the music for this show, unfortunately.
No.
That's brilliantly been written by Alex Wolff, and love doing that. But
Yeah.
the the music that I ended up just starting to write a little bit from a small theatre company I was working with, and they needed a little bit of music for some puppetry actually, and I loved it, and I
Yeah.
kind of just carried on doing that, and just through that experience and being introduced to other people or recommendations, it's just grown from there.
Yeah.
And it's something that's very different as well to
Mm.
an acting discipline. You're kind of working much more internally.
Mm.
Um, so again, it's just something that's a real joy to do and explore,
Yeah.
as part of creativity.
Yeah. Do you have a particular style that you write?
I would say, because my main instrument's a saxophone, and I play keyboards and flute as well. So often it will be probably a sort of folk or rootsy
Okay.
element, just because those are the things that lend themselves to the instruments I play. But
Yeah.
also I love jazz. So
Okay. Yeah.
occasionally a little bit more, something fluid will come out of it as well,
Yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
more off the wall.
Yeah, jazz is definitely that sometimes.
Yeah, can be.
Yeah. I mean, the touring life, what's that like for you, Dan? Do you enjoy it, or?
I do. I know it's not for everybody, and I
Yeah.
think some people find that changing from place to place and living out of a suitcase, it's not everyone's cup of
Mm.
tea. And certainly some places you end up, and it's not quite what you're expecting, where you're going to be living.
Yeah.
So with all of those, I can understand why it's not something that everyone jumps at, but I just really love going from place to place. I mean, this tour, we've been to several places that I've never visited before. And for me, that's a real privilege to get to work and travel at the same time. So yeah, I love it.
Well, it's a bonus, isn't it, to be able to see lots of different places that, as you say, you probably wouldn't have visited. I mean, do you have a favorite venue that you've visited, perhaps just on this tour so far?
This tour, I think I've loved all of them, but I think Oxford is somewhere, because I've never worked at the theatre in Oxford before.
Okay.
And it's quite a small space, but it's a real sort of traditional, lovely place. And the reception we had there was fantastic as well. But yeah, it's really difficult to choose. They've all been great, really.
Yeah, well, you're very lucky. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it, to go to lots of different lovely places, I would say. I mean, this show in particular, I mean, the artwork for it strikes me like it would be something that kids would perhaps come and enjoy. Is that right in my thinking?
Definitely. I mean, I think it certainly has an aesthetic that I mean, we say sort of for 9+, they'll certainly enjoy. There's some characters in there which have gone down very well with that sort of age bracket. But in addition to that, I'd say there is something, and it sounds cliche, but there really is something for everyone, whether you love music, whether you like physical theatre, there's comedy in it. It's a real heartwarming story, and it's a journey as well that we take people on. So definitely it's a great family show for this time of year. But I think what's been brilliant is that adults have given us such fantastic feedback from watching it as well. So yeah, it's
that's amazing. Great. It's always lovely when you hear, stories about shows that perhaps people are not too familiar with, that being so well received, really. I mean, you mentioned the music in the show. Do you have a favorite musical number?
I do, and again, it's because I'm playing saxophone in this, and
nice.
In the second half we have a song called Jagger Tales, which I won't give too much away about, but it's a big number, and we all love playing and singing that one, because we all get together and we're all there at the same time. So that's definitely a favorite for me.
I mean, do you like? I mean, the actor musician role, I think, has become more prevalent these days. I mean, I went to go and see The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe last week, actually, and there was lots of actor, musicians on stage walking around. I think it's such a lovely way to, showcase people's talent, really. I mean, do you enjoy that? Do you feel, I don't know, an element of safety if you've got an instrument with you?
I think you've definitely hit on something there. It's what's lovely is, I think, when you're performing just as a singer and you're accompanied, that's great. But actually, when you're creating the music around you as well, there's something, you become so much more part of the show. So there's a real sort of satisfying that feel that you're almost at a gig, or you're kind of a little band together. There's something that's really lovely about that. And it's a very warm thing, because it brings you together, I think, as well. When you're playing together, you have to be so attuned, literally, to each other, that you get quite close, I think. So it's a lovely thing to do.
Do the whole cast play?
They've various different things. So a couple of people play sort of percussion instruments. The rest of us play I think 3 or 4 instruments each. So we're flipping in and out and creating different sounds at different times. So we're kept busy.
It sounds wonderful, to be fair. So you also have done a bit of film and TV in your career. I mean, how's that? Do you prefer live theatre or TV work? What do you prefer?
I think they're so different. I think what people are always aware of is how different the process is of creating filmed work, and then that sense of being in a live performance. And I really enjoy both of them, but I think there can be a lot of sitting around when you're waiting when you're filming, and often you're just doing very short bursts and then you don't get a chance to kind of go back and really sort of explore things in the same way that you might do with theatre. So I think for me, I will always love live theatre, because you get that whole journey and that story that you can tell, and you get an instant reaction as well from an audience, which is usually lovely. Lovely.
But yeah, let's hope so. I mean, it's got a lot of lovely things written about it online, this show. So as I say, I'm sad not to be able to get to it really, but I am sending someone along. I mean, I'm just looking visually at some of the production pictures and the house. I mean, tell me about the house, because it looks incredible. I mean, the way, I'm assuming it moves.
It does.
Yes.
I'm not going to give you. You'll have to. Well, you can see some bits, but I mean, Jasmine Swan, who designed the house and the set for us. I mean, it really is its own character, and actually we as performers help create that character of the house, but it moves, it has emotions, you know, it's very striking. I think there are a couple of sort of gasp moments that we get from the audience when we do sort of little reveals, but it's quite big in scale as well, you know. It's quite an impressive thing when you see it on stage. And the detail of it, and the art, I think you've mentioned, you know, there's a lot of the sort of Slavic artwork and things that have been drawn as references, all these little details. There's always something new to find when you're looking at it. And it's just, it's lovely to play with, you know, as a set piece.
I would say is it probably what you would consider as sort of the heart of the show? I mean, it's
I mean, it's certainly a central piece of it, you know. It is the house of chicken legs, and everything, it revolves, and everything revolves around it.
I mean, it sounds absolutely wonderful. So as I mentioned at the top there, you are playing at the Southbank Centre up until the 30th of December, I believe. So what's next for you, Dan?
Well, hopefully a little bit of a break, not too long, hopefully. But it's been a lovely tour, so just having a couple of weeks at home, I think. And then there's a couple of other projects in the pipeline for the new year, and as I do write a little bit myself as well, I've got a couple of things that I want to pick up as well. So yeah, fingers crossed 2024 will be a busy one.
Yes, let's hope so. So I would like to wish you all the best, you and the rest of the cast and the crew with the show, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of the run.
Thanks, Emma.
Okay, you're welcome, and you take care.
Cheers.